So, hi Laura. Yeah, we're gonna talk fast, so get a lot done in the first half hour, and then during the second half hour, that's when we just kind of chill out. So, does people want to do a round of reports on what they've been up to and how's the week been? Anyone want to jump in with such a report?
I can. I'm Charlotte Pierce, and I've been sort of looking for a way to wrap my mind around all the little platforms and byways that we have to get people on board with peeragogy and keep them on board and keep myself on board and productive and moving forward, and what are we doing here. So I had the little overgrown English garden approach or image come to my head before I came on, but I was thinking maybe I was hoping we could do a little tour like I just did before we broadcast. But so yeah, go ahead. Next.
Anyone else? Interesting things of the week?
I did a fun experiment with my class, one of my classes, where I said, okay, you guys are going to see how tricky it can be to do things jointly and all by yourselves and a la peeragogy. And I said, okay, so you're going to have to self-select your roles. And I brought in the draft of that, the page where people wrote roles and things, and I talked about it. And I said, all right, so we're going to decide how to learn and teach something, and you're going to run it now. And that was it. So,
how was that?
It was good, but it was amazing because I prefaced it with, okay, I know you're all going to feel slightly uncomfortable and it's awkward. And the reason we're doing this is so that you can experience the fact that it sounds really easy and it sounds intuitive and obvious, but it takes a lot of woodshedding and letting go of things to be able to adopt those roles in a successful way. So it was quite fun in the end.
Did you say woodshedding?
Yeah, it's like you carve them.
For musicians, woodshedding is okay. For the rest of it, it means getting a whooping. For musicians, that's
it means working on something, practicing.
Wood shedding.
I happen to know some musicians, so I know that. But yes, when I was doing up wood shedding, well, it just meant going out and chopping wood in the woodshed, probably. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. Charlie's muted, but if anyone wants to lower third themselves or ID themselves by name, occupation, and social security number, you can go right ahead.
Okay.
Laura Ritchie was right there. So.
Oh, here's my link. So Laura, here's and Doug as well, because you were in the roles thing. I was just remembering. I wrote a paper about roles in education with my advisor a while back, and it's about the changes in the roles that might happen if you move to an online platform. So I'll do a quick update. Laura was saying something recently about mentoring, and I think I've been doing a bit of mentoring in the Gitter world because I feel very acquainted, and I'm trying to think how to be a good mentor because I'm realizing some people here, haven't been doing it for like I don't know how many years since GitHub came out, so take it a little bit easy, and I'm actually very pleased to see that it's happening. I'm also seeing chats coming in from Alex. Wonder if we should throw a link to this meeting in the
yeah. Go ahead.
So I would love to. Yes, I would love to learn how to be a good mentor. And Laura, I think you have a lot of experience. Maybe all of you have good experiences in being mentors and other things besides.
I like the way you're doing it. For me, anyway, works for me. And you're kind of like salting little links here and there, and it forces. I mean, for lack of a better word, forces me to go find that and not be afraid to lose my way. I think that holds people back a little bit sometimes. They're afraid of getting stuck somewhere and not knowing where they are or what it's related to.
Yeah, I like the metaphor of the garden. So I'll try to be a nice garden gnome there as opposed to a garden. I had one other thing. Oh yeah, John Lang was saying something about let's make this a place where you can voice your opinions publicly without getting someone to jump on you and beat the crap out of you because they disagree. And I think we generally are pretty good about being nice in the project, but it is an interesting question, and I'm very hesitant to speak up because I don't want to be like, oh, you did it wrong, you know, because that would be rude. So I want to come across like as a helpful mentor, but not a pain in the neck. I did have a music teacher back a while ago. I learned how to play piano. I did
You
not get
do. You are a terrific mentor. I mean, Karen and I were just talking about that. How
maybe it's because I have so much stuff.
well, you kind of tend to say, you know, when somebody says something really obtuse, you say, you know, like, well, that's one way of looking at it, or, you know, you might consider, or, you know, you just have those kind of automatic responses that are non-threatening and non-judgmental.
Well, thank you. That's a load off my mind. So that's my update. We're joined now by Lisa. Doug, Charlie, Lisa, you guys want to update us with your stories of the week?
Sure. Well, you actually did a great job at mentoring me in terms of GitHub and Gitter. And Gitter is really important, like really valuable. And what it points to is something that, at least for me, is probably one of the most critical pieces of the puzzle of all of this, which is signaling. You know, that in the flow and clutter and tide of everything that's coming in on a steady state basis, to have a mechanism attached to the project that signals so effectively when there's a new post, a new comment, a new event, you know, on the GitHub setup. It's just a really, really valuable tool. And it's sort of a, you know, each one of us has a meta existence that's obviously much bigger than just the footprint of the Peeragogy project, and that's true of folks. You know, I was thinking about this in the context of onboarding, and you know, that's true of folks. We got a signal this week. I don't know whether any of you responded to it because I'm not quite sure where the list is. But Michelle Bowens, you know, sort of put up his hand and said, yo, you know, don't have time, don't have bandwidth, and I'm getting hit with a lot of things in my inbox. Could you take me off the list, basically? You know, where is that list? You know, who's the keeper of that list? What's the curatorial, you know, program around maintaining that? You know, was it taken care of, and did we respond to that? You know, all of this stuff is of the essence to me for signaling purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a good thing because I didn't even catch that message. To throw that into
no, I found it. What I did was I went to it was on the event page, and so I took what he's referring to is when I set up all the Hangouts from now until the end of the year. So everybody in our circles, our Google Plus circles, got
barraged.
Well, they got a notice for each one, and then I had to correct a couple of them, so they got another notice. Now, there won't be any of those for a while, but I did take Michel off, and I put him on a no notify thing. This is where he was, right here on the event page. So he was nice enough to go to the event page, you know, specifically where the thing was coming from that he objected to. And then I took him, oh wait, I need to do this. This is why Peeragogy. I need to do Hangout no invite. Yeah, that's what I did with my own personal one, and then for peeragogy. Now that will take care of it if we don't use that no invite circle.
It does make sense, but indeed, yeah, we could, if it wasn't something that was caught already, then yeah, you could throw that right into the Gitter, like clean up chat or something, and just say, hey, there's a housekeeping chat, there's an issue with this, how do we deal with that? And then ultimately, Doug, the thing we could do is create a protocol.
Absolutely, yeah,
And
absolutely.
anyone who has access to that, for example, this I think Charlotte has demoed what the protocol should probably be, you know, but then we could write that up for someone who has 5 minutes to write something. You know,
I could do that.
So yeah, so I'm sort of, you know, rolling up my sleeves and thinking about, you know, what it's going to take to generate protocols, and we have a ton of them. And right now they might be tacit, and right now they might be sort of random, but I think it behooves us to make them not so, and to sort of harden them up and aggregate them and make them accessible, searchable, findable quickly. And I think that points to Alex, some of Alex and John's comments also about, you know, having a thing behind the Peeragogy project that represents a package of, you know, tools, protocols, and methods that are universally applicable for anybody that wants to do a collaborative and collective pedagogical kind of endeavor. And, you know, that's how I think we get to quote product. That's how we get to, you know, a thing that somebody can, you know, download or put their arms around or access and implement. And that makes it very real and tangible and specific.
Oh, cool. So yeah, I hadn't even been thinking about it that way. Those are two different things, both of them coming from you, but I had perceived them as like different things. But yeah, they do come from the same place, or go to the same place, maybe more accurately. That makes sense. Yeah. And that does breathe some life into the protocol discussion. I'll try to find a thing so I can screen share that. Charlie, do you want to update us on how's it going over there? You're the furthest west. No, Lisa's furthest west.
Sure. I've been I just sent out an email to everybody I just finished this whole novel. And it's called Nice Work by David Lodge.
Okay.
And Charlotte should be happy. Starbucks is listening to you. They've turned down their music.
Why me?
All the other people who yell at me. Never mind. But yeah. So anyway, I think it's pretty good. I think it might be good for the Fox paper in the Ideal University. There's two people, and they're taught. One of them's like this, a worker, like a managing director at a factory, and the other one is a feminist literary, like theorist professor. And so they're like kind of like yin and yang, and they're talking about universities and what they should be or shouldn't be. And then one of them says there should be like the university should be free, and then the other one says, what, and kick out the middle class kids to make room, and she says, no, provide more places. And then the guy said, and more landscaped halls of residence, artificial lakes and ducks on them. I'm going to just kind of show the screen and then read the next part, and that's the end of my update, but I think it's kind of cool. All right, so why not? They enhance the environment. Better these halls than any other estate of executive houses with Georgian windows, or is it Jacobean now? Universities are the cathedrals of the modern age. They shouldn't have to justify their existence by utilitarian criteria. Trouble is, ordinary people don't understand what they're about. Universities don't really bother to explain themselves to the community. We have an open day once a year. Every day ought to be an open day. The campus is like a graveyard at weekends and vacations. It ought to be swarming with local people doing part-time courses, using the library, using the laboratories.
going to lectures, going to concerts, using the sports center, everything. Just threw out our arms, We have to get rid of the security men, barriers, and let all people in. And then, yep. And then this nice idea, but it wouldn't be long before you'd have graffiti sprayed all over the walls, so it's vandalized, and the Bunsen burners nicked. Who's being the latest now? So anyway, I just thought that was a cool expression of the university that within a pedagogical aspect where it's like you still have the students, but then you have like open the community, and yeah.
Awesome.
So that's yeah. So that's that. Thanks. And then I read the onboarding thread back and forth on GitHub. It's pretty good stuff. And I guess just Joe's last comment was good about the Wikimedia Foundation, and as an example, and Lisa raised some really good points. So yeah, I guess just feedback on that is just that it's all good, and that definitely need to be. I don't know. I like that Japanese guy, his comments about how like it's okay to have it be like really difficult to get in, like you have to do it on your own, as opposed to like what it is now. That's okay, but then you just kind of, or it could be really welcoming, but we should just make it clear which one it is. And I don't know. At least I know we're talking about onboarding, make it easy, but it also might. I don't know. I think it'd be worth discussing. Just saying like you could have a line on the website or like. We're not, you have to catch yourself up to speed if you don't want to do that. You can try this, but like no promises in terms of like how quick we'll be to respond to you. But you are totally welcome to like figure it out on your own and jump in. Kind of harsh, but also like that's like it's more clear. It's basically what we've been doing the past few years, and like Lisa and other people have been able, and Laura have been able to catch up, but. We haven't been like explicit about it.
So one thing that Laura said right before you joined, she did an exercise with her class, like a peeragogy exercise, and she was telling them this is going to be embarrassing. So it's like, you know, you can, or this is going to be like difficult in some ways. Like, you know, if we are clear on which parts are going to be difficult, and we could say this is going to be difficult, it will be much more, you know, supportive and assuring when it actually is difficult, as opposed to like, was this meant to be difficult, or like, you know, like. Is it meant to be this hard, and people get confused? I think they'll quickly get frustrated if that happens. So, I
think that's valuable because if you read some of the book, sometimes it sounds like a great fun story that's actually quite, you know, you should be able to replicate it or just do it. And in practice, sometimes it is challenging, and the whole idea is that it's actually for some people a big shift in thinking, and that. Takes time to adjust to, especially when it's not just a one person, but you have peers. So every person that you add complicates the situation and makes it more, you know, it takes a group okayness with it. They all want to do it.
You know, there's also a facilitation element that's required, and that facilitation in a peeragogy construct is necessarily self-instantiated by the members that are participating, but there's sort of a commitment that we're each going to help the others where we can, if we can, when we can. And Laura, in your example, you know, you threw them into the deep water, but you also ultimately were there as a facilitative lifesaver to say, and I'm here to help you, you know, get on top of it and figure it out. You're not driving it, you're not sourcing it, you're not controlling it or powering it or dictating it, but you're very much there in a facilitative capacity. And I think the higher the learning curve, the deeper the water, the greater the challenge and the complexity, whether it's tools and technology, whether it's protocols, whether it's the scope of the undertaking or figuring out what the it is. You know, the deeper the water, the more facilitative energy is required to really have something thrive and grow. You know, if it's a pet project of a half a dozen people and it doesn't have that aspiration, that's fine. But if you want something that's going to grow and develop some, you know, viability, almost on a biological level, then the facilitation really needs to be built there and built in and designed into it.
I think that's a really valid, very valid thing, and it goes back to you when you said earlier, and I was trying to scroll up in the comments and find where Joe wrote it down about the protocols and everything and making things explicit. I think in there, somewhere in there, hopefully can be fit something that there is an option of the facilitation. I think somebody in one of the Gitter chats had said, are we going to have takers for this? And I made a comment that I don't think we'll ever have any takers or customers who take away a downloadable package and that's it. But it's going to be more of a symbiotic relationship. And if that was something we could offer in some way, then it would be attractive. I think then there would be more fish on the line.
A model for that is the open source movement, and in the open source movement, you do have things that are sort of generally open source. When they get to a certain level of scale and robustness, usually the originators, if they haven't sort of resigned or been replaced, the originators will evolve a sort of next-gen commercialization service to help folks that want to get on board and require more help rather than less and are willing to pay for it. But that doesn't negate sort of the larger open source community of developers and builders, facilitating and supporting each other.
I'm with you. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think those are all really good points. And Laura, that's really cool you did that with your class. And thank you, Laura, for liking my tweet about my reading I did last week. That's very cool of you. Appreciate it. And I saw followed you back. I need to look up your self-efficacy book. But I mean, within open source, the vast majority of projects, they have one contributor and they never get followed through on. That's the norm. The situation you're describing, Doug, where they get to a level that the originators are at least as far as I'm aware, that's the norm, where the originators are able to move away from the project or commercialize servicing aspect of it and that type of stuff. That is awesome. That would definitely be something we'd want to aspire to. But at the same time, that's not the norm. That's very, very difficult. And within concrete specific steps of getting there, I think we have them. But I also think that this is going off what that person left on our onboarding conversation. Currently it's deceiving. And Lauren, if Lauren's there to shepherd you through it, I think currently, I think we should just be, I think it's okay to be, or whatever. I just think, not that we should be, but I think it's not a bad idea to make it clear that more clear there's a lot of work expected from you want to participate in this specific thing, or you're going to have to do a lot of work to catch up. I don't know. Yeah. So that's my thought.
So awesome. Yeah. So we got 5 more minutes left of Laura. Laura, maybe would you be willing to do a quick wrap up of this brief half-hour meeting from your point of view before you jet? And of course we didn't get Lisa's update as well. So let's make a couple minutes to find out what's going on with Lisa. But Laura, yeah, why don't you situate it for us, please.
Okay, so there have been lots and lots of conversations going on in different places, Gitter and some tweets and some things and people doing things in the week, and it's Doug raised the point that it's really good to actually, there's a lot of unspoken things that happen, and to make it concrete so that both we and others can see what's the score. And there were comments on Gitter that actually, is it, what's required, how is it, where are the difficulties, and maybe sometimes both the protocols and the challenges, the whole thing could be articulated or not, but that way to help make things accessible. There also, I think I'm hearing that there could be different levels of ways of adopting different peeragogy, so that some things could be completely clear from a package that you read about that you might use as an independent project, but there might also be ways of integrating it with the group so that you don't feel like you're thrown in the deep end alone. But there's some idea of mentoring. We've had really good examples like Joe mentoring all of us, well, those of us who need to know about GitHub and how to start doing that kind of thing. So I think a lot of it already happens. So we're already further along than.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's a good prototype. I mean, the fact that there are new people from different levels of newness in this discussion, and there's others who are kind of in a satellite on the Gitter who are going to be following up over the course of the week. I think that is so great how different people can catch things. Even just now, you're noticing and hearing different things in the conversation than what I heard, and I was like, oh yeah, I did hear that. That it kind of slipped past me. So somehow it's like we're all looking at this dancing bear from different points of view, and we see it in 3D now. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that I was just suggesting in the chat, the way we did this little preview when we talk about what's been going on, and maybe when we do these sessions, we sort of, don't talk about ourselves, but about what we've been doing in relation to peeragogy, and like a little preview of what's new, and I think some of us did that.
Yes, I think there's a good update on the peeragogy from all sides. I suppose maybe in the next week we will have to say goodbye, or the next half we'll have to say goodbye to Laura, but we can think also about what's coming up in the next week. That's the division of time, a bit of reflection, a bit of planning. So are you going to continue? Are you going to continue with your class in this peeragogical way, Laura?
Yeah, we do that all the time. But it was just this time I sort of said, actually, I'm not going to help you this week. Let's see how you do it, because there tends to be I've got a sort of floaties on my arms, so I'm never going to sink. And that just told them, actually, you might sink, see how it feels. So yeah, we carry on.
Interesting. Sounds cool. We did. Doug and I sat in on a class I think it was in Utah, but we were neither of us there, and they were doing some really interesting group organized things. I don't know if any of that's recorded or whatever happened with that, but the students were amazing. So it was like way more fun than listening to a TED talk, because these kids were like so inspired. So, sounds good. If your class anything like that. Okay, Lisa, how's it going? What's up? I saw some posts from you, so I know you're definitely doing stuff on Gitter and GitHub. How's it going elsewise?
Yeah, so I've been working on a number of other things. One of them is actually publishing a book and learning how that goes, so I might be able to help you down the road with that. I haven't done anything too much yet, but I'm getting familiar with it. Let's see, a lot of other things going on. As far as peeragogy, I really like Gitter. I think it's a really useful tool for us to keep track of conversations and to be able to keep up on things. I think, too, one of the things when we talk about onboarding, I think that people may onboard in different ways. So, for example, somebody may be interested in peeragogy from a business perspective, and what we have right now is pretty academic and difficult for them to understand. Likewise, teachers who are trying to teach using peeragogical concepts, if you look at what we're doing, I think it's a pretty big distance between where they're at possibly and what we're doing as far as helping them bridge that gap. So when we talk about onboarding, I think we may want to, as we build this out, look at onboarding of people who are interested in more the academic and research and theoretical elements. And in that case, the ideas of patterns and all that will be relevant, start to make sense. Talk about teaching and businesses and organizations and things like that. We may just want to have a section about how peeragogy relates to those things with examples or something to help people understand. And with that might give them enough to link back to the more theoretical, to the things that don't connect quite as directly, but they may be able to start to translate it themselves. That's just kind of a thought on that.
Yes, I think I think if I don't think I quite understood everything you're saying, but if I understand correctly, there's certainly I would agree. It's a very academic book, and like you look at like a teacher, that post on Reddit just says it all. It's like, they're a busy teacher, they don't have time to read the book. Sounds nice, I don't have time to read it. Wow. Like that's, I think, probably 98% of the target audience or something, people who might actually like to do something with pedagogy, they just feel like they don't have time for it, whether it's a teacher or a business person. But if it's a business person, that's going to cut the other fraction, because it's like they look at it and say, yeah, if I actually made time, it's not even really relevant to me. So, which they're probably wrong about, but it's going to be very difficult to do onboarding when you're getting these kinds of reactions from people. So what about something like, make it so that the first thing they see is not a gigantic theoretical tome, but like, some maybe not quite as short as that post you posted, Lisa, but like, something like that, like 4 peeragogical maxims that you can apply right now to improve your, relationship with your boss or something like that. And that would be an example, but like something simple, and like have 16 of those, lay out our thoughts in those principles, and then we could go to town, having a big theoretical discussion about how and why and the next use cases and stuff. But like, yeah, if we could boil it down to those easy things, it would both accomplish something for onboarding and probably for us too. So we wouldn't get lost in the details. But I think the thing I've been saying on the Gitter is like, onboarding is great, but I think it's also like, are we getting on board a sinking ship, or are we getting on board a floating island, or a moving castle, or what are we getting on board
I think it's the East Australian current.
Could be. It could. Everyone's got their own opinion. It could be the East Australian current. I don't know.
Cowabunga.
Yeah, the current. Yeah, it feels good when you're on it, but I think for many other people, it probably feels like who knows, a fog or something. So I think
Hurricane George or something.
Yeah, and Doug had a great point. I think if I can rephrase it as well as like, if we want this, it may feel good for us, but if we want there to be, do we want there to be 100 people in this hangout, or do we want there to be 100 different hangouts a week with different people talking about different things, or do we not want that? We explicitly say no, keep it small, keep it just for us. I don't know, but like taking the ambition of making a new kind of university, that would probably be for like at least 2,000 people a year. Right now there's 5, so like, I'm not suggesting we should go out and recruit whatever that would be, 200 people each to go join a chat. But we might want to think about it, like in maybe not recruiting 200 people, but like, what would it mean to scale this up? One of the thoughts I had was just scale it up by a factor of 2 to get one hangout going on the East Hemisphere and one going on the West, because I could conveniently join both. I don't know, maybe you could, Lisa, too, because you're on like the opposite side of the Earth, so it'd be like the times where it's, my evening would be your morning, and we might be able to hop into the East Coast one as well. But, people need to sleep as well, so it wouldn't be an obligation. But we could maybe multiply it by a factor of 2 if we got that going.
I
don't know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, nothing.
The accelerators will be, I think, really big, or big help, because I think if we can show people how, and document those, and show people how the approach is effective, then there will be people making ways to, figuring out how to find their way to the core group, or if that's what we want. But I think it will be sort of a program of attraction then, project of attraction.
True. Yeah. Charlie, are you waving at this because you have to go?
I gotta go. But yeah, good stuff as always, and definitely we talked about, but having multiple weekly stuff would be good. And to fit my schedule better. So yeah, no commitment meeting. Yeah, definitely support that.
Cool.
But,
Okay.
Good times as always.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Talk
Bye.
later.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I guess, like, I would love to make it like my next job, but I can't see my way clear to how to make it my next job yet, because we're not.
Well, I mean, I think we could do the Peeragogy Accelerator, and the first wave, just really document them well, and if they succeed through our approach, then we do what you suggested with the donate, pay as much as you can on the next round. I mean, if it's effective, people will pay for it. They pay consultants all the time.
Yeah, true. That's true. And I think, some kind of thing like, what was that, eco squared, so you pay something in and we could keep this gigantic growing pot of money, a squared kind of way, and use that for something when we're ready to, so we don't always have to pay it directly out as salary. So I mean, we could just start it, and then we'd have a bank account so we could receive these donations, and then if they happen to come along, then we could start paying out stipends or salaries or buying condominiums or whatever you do with money when you have it.
I mean, if like with IPNI, say we did a formal accelerator, and it had an effect, it was documented, I could make the case for paying, $500 for that or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it's got to be, nobody's gonna. It's like, chicken and the egg. Nobody's gonna pay for it if it's a bunch of wonderful theoretical concepts.
Yeah.
It's just they just don't see the practicality.
No, and I think that if you see, on the other hand, if you see practical effects at the end of a month, that's both a long enough time that you think it's going to probably stick, and a short enough time that, like, it's not like we're talking about years of your life to invest in the thing either.
Right.
That could be good. I mean, Planet Math paid, I don't remember what it was, $2,000 or something to a consultant at one time, a friend of Howard's actually. So we first heard of Howard through this woman, but we didn't meet him until years later. So the whole Peeragogy project somehow came out of that. So that was good, and I mean, I don't know if it directly helped our bottom line, but had it been pay what you want or pay what you think it's worth, I would have paid something like that.
Yeah, if we can also, after the 4 weeks, keep a regular track and check in, and that's part of the package and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the idea of bringing in, if we could, if the one of the things that she was really good at, this woman was named Marnita, she would like hook you up with other people. So she tried to hook me up with Howard, and I think maybe I even emailed him. I can't remember if I did or not, but it's like, she tried to connect you with people in her network that would help you. That was one of the main things she would do.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we, as a group of 5 or some gang of 4 or something, we don't have all the skills that are needed for, to solve someone's problem. But we have an approach to teach them or, share with them that will help them bootstrap their own organization or learning experience.
And we've been.
And I think that's what we offer, right? Isn't that what we offer?
We've involved enough different things that we know there's different ways of going about it too. So like I could say, here's what they did at P2PU. Here's what they did in Planet Math. I recommend don't doing this, do that. But that's just my opinion. Talk to Doug or Lisa if you want to know someone who's done it in the corporate world. This kind of stuff. So. Yeah, I think we could. I mean, we did this kind of 0 iteration of the Peeragogy Accelerator, which I think personally was a bit of a mess because we were trying to run all of our projects simultaneously. I think picking one and focusing on it for a month would be much more wholesome. And especially if we got it, if we had it like 4 of them, one from each of us or one from each of 4 people, kind of queued up in advance. So we knew there was going to be some follow-through because we might not get it right the first time, but we knew people were going to willing to show up, put in some time, do it pro bono, see if they get some benefit for their project, so they'd get something out of it. And then, they don't have to commit to do it in the future, but if like they say, yeah, well, it worked great, then maybe they come back for the next 4 months when we have other people and we could do some recruiting. And maybe we wouldn't make any money out of it at all because if people were paying what they could and they say, yeah, well, thanks, it was helpful, but I can't afford to pay anything, then we wouldn't make any money at all. And I think we'd be fine with that, to do it for another 8 months not making money, because we weren't thinking about making money otherwise. So.
Yeah. Well, I haven't. I would have to run it by the board of directors, but they're sort of in my back pocket anyway. So. I mean, there's going to be a new board of directors. So.
Well, so if I can throw some 2 cents in. First of all, the critical discipline, to my mind, to make the accelerator meaningful vis-a-vis the Peeragogy project, and have whatever is done in service to the subject organization or undertaking that is being accelerated, is that we sort of have a super consciousness through the process where we're saying what's step one, what's step two, what's step three, and what are the ingredients of each step, and what are the protocols that we're going to follow in executing. And I suspect Lisa and I share a business-centered background grounding around this. But the initial thing is discovery and data gathering. It's sort of like what is, and the step two is what is the goal? What are we looking to have it become in some future state, post-transformation development or whatever? And then to figure out and connect the dots between where we are and where we want to get to. And the Peeragogy project, if I could do that exercise for the Peeragogy project, or take that liberty, not that it governs or controls, it's subject to everybody sort of aligning around the same idea, but my vision around the Peeragogy project is that the distilled methodology, protocols, tools, and technology and platforms that we use to do that acceleration process, based on what we've done and learned and have developed over time in the project to date, that distillation out is what I think becomes a thing the Peeragogy project has as a foundation, sort of a generic roux from which you could make any kind of sauce. But it becomes sort of the raw stock, raw material for approaching any group learning or group endeavor, collective collaborative endeavor. And so the accelerator exercises is only in service to the Peeragogy project if we actually, at every step along the way, distill out and pull out the nitty-gritty of how we're doing what we're doing and why. So that's populating the protocols, and that gets really granular and really specific. It's a matter of just doing the work, and that can be really taxing and gruesome. I'm just going to say that up front. But once it's done, and you don't have to look back, and it's there to reference.
Yeah.
But it's also not as hard when we do it, when we, sort of pile on and do a little.
Collectively, yeah, absolutely. That can make it hugely less painful.
And I could imagine having little breakout sessions, like if it was something like I proposed it and you said, for example, in this one, I think this one could be broken down, I could schedule a meeting with you and we could go over it. So like if you and I see eye to eye about it, we just let it be, and if someone else has a further critique, then they can have a breakout session with one of us or something until we get it sorted out to a reasonable level. And it doesn't have to involve the whole group. It doesn't have to take up all week, unless it's something really important, in which case we might go bang on it again in a meeting. As we're doing now, for example, like looking at some of the bigger pictures.
Yeah, and what you just described becomes a protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a mechanism for doing that, and so people know, a component of that is platform. So, the project has a calendar that's shared. The project has a GitHub. The project has a Git, or it has a notification system. The project has a mechanism for synchronous and asynchronous coordination and transactions and collaborations. But it enables people to stay up to speed and to know what's next in the queue, or what's next to weigh in on or contribute to or get involved with. So, that's what I keep invoking that concept of collective metacognition, because that's really what that is. It's sort of like, bringing to conscious and attentional focus, how are we doing, what are we doing? And how do we maximize use of the tools to automate what we're doing, given limited resources, a limited number of people, and ambitious undertakings on the table? How do we maximize using tools and the setup and the configuration of this to serve and facilitate us mostly doing pure work and doing as little administration as humanly possible, as little, manual notification and
copying of URLs.
yeah, all of that stuff. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, understand. I mean, I know that might sound really basic and simple, but the truth is, it's on that basic, simple level that nobody out there has really codified a way of utilizing the platform and automation affordances of the Google universe, for example, to minimize redundancy of effort and manual. Charlotte, you're the example you just used, but there are 100 of those, and each time I'm manually cutting and pasting a link to share as opposed to that happening automatically because we set it up that way and thought it through as we went. That's where I think we could provide a huge value, service, insight to the world at large, and that reference doesn't exist.
Yes, it's kind of a peeragogical Snopes or something. Is it Snopes? Am I name checking Snopes properly here?
Well, Snopes is more of a verification, validation, and a crap detection context. I think this is more a matter of like thinking it through from a facilitation, maximization of automation in service to facilitating group endeavor, using these tools, but thinking through the setup and the configuration. It's more of a best practices. I hate to invoke that phrase because best practices is actually a South American euphemism for the first time it worked. It's not actually best practices, it's the first time something actually is, worked in practice. But if we could actually do best practices and go, think it through, like the first time I grab this link, where am I putting it, and how many people are getting notified that that's there?
So Lisa has an interesting point in the chat, which I think resonates with something I was going to say, which I saw that I'll say my thing, and then Lisa, if you want to have a go, because a while ago Doug said, Lisa has a business background, as do I, but I think you guys have at least subtly different points of view, so I'm interested to hear about yours, and I think this is getting into that. But I'd like to hear it in your words. But my little thing was that there's a use case which I heard about a while ago from my dad, which is that there's something like, I don't remember, 500 NGOs or something in Nigeria or whatever, maybe more, some number of NGOs in some place, and it's like they all have got to set up these things. They all set it up wrong. They all don't talk to each other, and so it ends up being so much money is wasted in this area where people are actually in need. It's a huge industry, NGO industry, but if we could intervene on that scale and say, look, at the scale of Nigeria or whatever, a bigger area, like, here's how it actually could work, that would be a huge win, and it's the kind of thing that we're talking about. And no, we're not scaled up there yet because it's just 4 of us right now on the call. However, there's going to be some people watching the video, there's going to be some reacting later, so let's say we multiplied it by a factor of 2 or 3 just because of the way we do it. Now, bring those 12 people's brain power to bear, if we could find another 12 people and say they're involved in this space and have an ongoing consultation with them during the course of a month, we could start to make an impact. We wouldn't solve the problem, but we could say, yeah, with a couple NGOs, they changed the way they do a little bit of stuff or something like that. So that was my use case.
I just added a link on Coggle to unconditional love.
Yeah, we found that. Good work. Yeah, so I was going to say we'd used it before, but now you remember that. So yeah,
I invoke that a lot just because, as a concept, it has such a broader applicability than just than just love. It's just like,
yeah, it's like we're all humans. Like let's act like we're in favor of each other.
Well, and it's like how if my goal is to serve you, then it's up to me to figure out how best what service looks like to you, not what service means to me. And there are a lot of different ways people are going to come at things. We should be able to accommodate as many of them as humanly possible, because inclusiveness is really critical to any kind of grassroots collaborative initiative. Because you want to get anybody and everybody that wants to invest 1 erg of attentional energy. You want that energy. You want to benefit from that. And if that person is only set up to deal with telephone, then how do you get that erg from somebody who only knows how to deal with a telephone?
Yeah, that's a interesting question. I run through that a lot, into that phenomenon a lot, and
right, it's an interesting challenge. It's like,
mm-hmm.
and it's not the person who only deals with the telephone to figure that out. It's the people that want to capitalize on that person's interest and attentional willingness to invest to figure out how to make that possible.
So as a bridge to Lisa, if she wants to have a go, someone's phone is ringing. That's a nice ring you've got there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, very analog, right?
Yeah, it's refreshing.
So the thing I've been noticing, and we've talked about this in the last couple of weeks, and it's like we have different ways of engaging, and I'm of the opinion that those who are more quiet are thinking, whereas those who are talking, they are talking with things they've already thought about. So to be fair to both are useful, but I'm always impressed. I think that this idea that we've talked about are these curves that kind of go down and say, oh, well, these ones here are contributing most of the value. Doug, you raised the point that these ones over here are probably contributing a lot of value, and I think that ends up often being the case in our group conversations today. So I would put that as a bait to Lisa to let us know what you've been thinking about. If you want to take the bait, if you don't want to take the bait, you want to keep pondering, that's cool too. She's willing to take it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I think I come at it from a perspective of a couple different things, and having to sell ideas through organizations to people who may have even hated each other at different times, but try to at least get them to call a truce long enough to not kill each other while. So I've dealt with different degrees of antagonism.
I resemble that comment.
Yeah, there was one
not everything's about you, Doug.
No, I resonate with that. I've been there.
Yeah, and also having worked in product planning and stuff, it's really a pretty hard negotiation as far as getting people to get on board, and sometimes you're thinking of things that they may not have considered. So with that said, I think sometimes we have to think big and small. So with a corporate idea, there is the appeal to the CEO and to help them understand at a CEO level how their language impacts the organization and things like that, and how just through their language and some of their thinking drives their languages, they may be able to leverage the assets of their organization more effectively. But they don't really need to know what all the peeragogy stuff is. If you sit down and start talking about peeragogy, at least the organizations I've worked with and dealing with executives, 10 minutes and you're done and forget it, and they don't even want to hear the word again. So there's that element of it, but then there's also the element of, even if the CEO understands it and they're speaking in the ways that will help facilitate it, to get people to buy into the concept, sometimes you have to start out real simple and real small, so that they see how it works, they feel comfortable with it, they see the benefits, and then the idea of bringing it into a bigger project is, I don't want to say less threatening, it's the crawl before you walk before you run kind of thing too. So even the potential of bringing the concept of peeragogy into organizations, starting at small levels, will help them understand what works in maybe smaller groups of 3, 4, and 5. And then if, sometimes too that small group realizes they're needing to bring in more resources, it may expand to 20 by the time they're done, but they start out with something that's a little more tangible for them. So I think it's what I'm always flipping through my head when we're talking is trying to figure out with these different audiences how we handle things, because they all have different needs, levels of understanding based on how they're going to use it, and you need to get different levels of buy-in. So, you know, and we can't really have the CEOs come in and try to push it down on people, because that's the opposite of peeragogy. You know, we can't start out with a decidedly unpeeragogical approach to peeragogy if we want it to take off. If people feel like it's being imposed on them, that's not going to, you know, it's pretty much opposite of what we're trying to do. You're going to start off on the wrong foot. So anyway, those are just some thoughts that are kind of swirling around right now. I don't know if that helps anybody, but trying to figure out.
I think it has so much parallel relevance to other disciplines. And
I wanted to point this book out, which is available for free online. I hate reading like long books that are free, and I really had a hard time even reading this one. No offense, even in the paper version. Nevertheless, you'll recognize it's about writers' workshops and patterns. So I felt I was obliged to read it, and I made good progress through it. But the reason I'm holding it up now, it's available for free, and I can find the section that's relevant to what you were just saying, is that they use the writers' workshops in projects, you know, in a business setting, so like getting something out the door. And I'll find that quote and I'll post it someplace, just to point out that like that's their specific, you know, that's their special sauce for how they do peeragogy in this one constrained way. And maybe it's nice because, you know, it's a really focused methodology. It's well tried, it's well standardized across other disciplines and stuff like that. And so if you can try it, I think it was an advertising setting, so the same product planning thing we were talking about, you know, oh, let's do a workshop style, and then they see a benefit. That's a way in, and you wouldn't even have to say anything about peeragogy. You just say, hey, here's a collaborative way to do something, you know, and it's worked in these other contexts, so let's try it. And still people resisted it. So I'll pull out a couple quotes about that, but it seems to match the starting small, like, and that also brings to mind a whole other issue, which is the branding issue, which is like trying to market this thing as peeragogy or a peeragogy accelerator. This might not work for some people. They may say, no thanks, it sounds like school. It sounds like the wrong thing for me. So, you know, maybe we need to have several different ways to market exactly the same thing and slap a different label on it depending on the person. To be slightly critical, but you know, I think as we think about what our offering is, if we call it all peeragogy and say it's all in this one big bucket, then it's not the same specialized thing that you guys have been talking about, like handing something to some people.
So you're saying like the organizational accelerator or the learning accelerator or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about like there's like the learning channel, so we can't call ourselves that, but like there's, you know, and there's the Y Combinator, so we can't call ourselves that. But you know, it's like different things for different applications.
Well, if we called ourselves Unconditional Love, we might get some interesting participation.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Keep my unconditional love between us before I invite just anybody. I've tried this in the past, being really friendly to people. I'm a real pushover, so you know, it sometimes it works out better for one person than another. Anyway,
well, can we wrap up soon, or?
Yes, it's the time to wrap up. I think we should wrap up now. So I like Lisa's quote exactly. I'll put that at the end of the chat, which I'm now copying.
And what we're going to do about a wrapper?
Yeah, so we were going to talk about that. Like, yes, 1 minute. So I will send this chat around. If anyone wants to take the time to too long don't read, sum up the high points, I would say let's make that a note in the same email. And Doug, I don't know if you're getting these emails now on the Google group, but that's where I'm sending this chat. And today's chat, I probably won't do the too long don't read today, but I'd be happy to take a turn sometime. So we could also have it be by turn by a volunteer. And if no one volunteers, fine, that's okay. Maybe it's just not that attractive of a job. But the idea is you would read the email, you'd reflect on the video, maybe you'd even take the time to rewatch it if you wanted to get really invested, and then you'd write a quick thing and sling it into the Peeragogy in Action community and say, hey, we talked about this, and then reshare the video. Here's what we talked about. If you want a full log, here's the chat's granted. One other comment on that, one other quick technical thing, is if you put these comments into the comment into YouTube or Peeragogy or into Google+, it will actually allow you to click on the timestamps, and that makes it a really good tool to go along with the video. So if you had a paragraph that said, here's what we talked about, and then chat follows, people could read the paragraph, they could decide if they're interested, then they could click to the timestamps, so they wouldn't have to watch the whole video. So it would make the video that much more attractive and useful to people. We don't have to do it this week, but this is what we could.
There is also, because our sound is so good usually, except for Charlie.
It's pretty good today.
There's a transcript that's automatically generated by YouTube that can really help a rapper. I don't know how you exactly copy it whole cloth, but it has the exact timestamps for where it is in the video, so you can kind of scan down it and you can see Doug saying something about preferences or processes or something, and
better than nothing. So.
Yeah, you'll get right to the place where it talks about it.
It would be interesting to automatically sync that to the chat, so that we got the chat in one column, the video in another column, and the transcript all in another column. That's a bit of tech magic that we can't do today. But anyway, so I'm unvolunteering myself because it's late and I'm hungry and I want to go get hamburger or beans, cooked beans. I don't know, they're dry. I've got to figure out. Anyway, something like that's in my future. I'm not writing a transcript right now, and after that, I think I'm going to do. I'll unvolunteer myself, and I don't want to force you guys to do it either. But that's something that we talked about in the past, and now at least it's on record.
Can we put it on a Google Doc? And I don't know if it's something we could all.
I mean, I think the thing is, I don't think we want to. Well, yes, we could be subtractive from the chat, throw it into a chat, and then just subtract away. But I feel like this is like an additive thing. Just like, imagine writing a haiku, a poem. Like what we talked about today was such and such, and it's for a different audience. This is the onboarding thing, or the outreach thing we talked about. Imagine this is an applied case study in that. Like we're trying to reach a new audience, maybe just the people already in our community. Which, by the way, do they ever do anything? I don't know. Many of them don't seem to do anything. But figuring out.
But there's got to be a way that we can sort of. Scratch up a few more responses.
So I think a really short summary, with rather than subtracting from everything we have there, I think it's like adding. First half of the meeting we talked about this. Second half we talked about that. Here's the full chat. Here's the video if you want to have access. Maybe it helps to think about who's the audience. So, like for example, you could share it with the IPNI people. You say, for the IPNI folks, here's what we talked about today. If this is the kind of thing that's you're interested in, we could talk about it some more with you next week, or whatever. If you wanted to push you, wouldn't have to go to that level.
Yeah, I mean, half the time people will come on a sort of a low stress chat, hangout type thing, and they don't mind doing that.
I know you've invited me to those. Anyway, let's stop the broadcast. Goodbye, cool world. No,
Yellow Brick Road.
Yeah, Yellow Brick Road. We're heading there. Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.